Dear Dad, as you know, I'd wanted to volunteer with the Peace Corps since 2018. So by the time the pandemic risks had began to wane, and they actually started sending volunteers, I was as ready as anyone could be. I was ready to rise to the occasion, to learn the language. I was ready to engage in servant leadership. I was ready for the whole 26 hours of travel from Washington, D.C. to our host country. But we made it to the glorious rolling hills and mountain ranges of Eswatini. We were settled in our dorms, ready to start pre-service training the next day. We were staring up at the stars, imagining what the journey ahead might... Wait. Is that mountain on fire? Hold up. Is the field by our cafeteria? Do I hear burning outside of our classroom?
You what?
While all of this was shocking, the most surprising thing was how host country nationals reacted. Batmolile futsi bapumulile, nonchalant and unfazed, nonplussed and unbothered. And so we took our cues. As Peace Corps volunteers, it is essential to, in layman's terms, do as the Romans do, as we attempt to integrate into the many Romes of the world. Our cue, in this case, was to play it cool, and to trust that these flames were as harmless as everyone else's behavior would imply. What we were witnessing is called by many names by the experts of different disciplines: controlled burnings, dryland fires, anthropogenic burnings, etc. Here, the practice is called gusha. It was explained to us by the groundskeepers and language and culture facilitators alike to be a process used to keep the grounds tidy, to clear dead brush for new growth, to create a fertile layer of plant ashes on the soil, and to clear the field of snakes. To which I responded, cool, but like, y'all just gonna let it burn? Yeah, they just let it burn. Let it burn. It's burning. The control wasn't immediately evident in these controlled fires. Remember, we just watched a mountainside go up in flames. But as I observed, and as is reflected in the literature, these fires are often ignited with an understanding that the fire will only burn the right amount of land. It's really intuitive when you think about it. Basically, these fires are fuel limited, not ignition limited. What stops them is not the conditions of temperature or moisture, but the absence of something to burn. Once all of the flammable plant debris is burned, the fire has done its job, and it's gone. Africans across the continent have known this for millennia, and have developed burning patterns that follow the natural patterns of bushfires that occurred in human absence for eons. Even the plants are acclimated. Many of them are outfitted with fire retardant bark that burns at far higher temperatures than these maintenance fires ever reach. In fact, this phenomenon is so benign that the largest music festival in the country is named after it. I'll go next year. Nyatsimbisa. Coming from where we're from, this cavalier approach to open air fire was inconceivable. Both of our generations were raised with an abundance of caution around this stuff. Over the years, we've watched wildfires devastate California with greater and greater severity. Even as I write this, many of our North American neighbors struggle to cope with the drastically diminished atmospheric air quality that has resulted from wildfires. And as I read these headlines, I wonder, what does all this burning do to the air quality here? I mean, I felt it a little when I first arrived, but I think my lungs may have been conditioned given that we're from Houston, where the air quality is infamous. So maybe my lungs are conditioned, considering that we're from the city with the 6th worst air quality in the country, from the state that is number 2 in number of vehicles, number 2 in miles driven, and number 3 in fuel expended. And we live in the country, where the average citizen spends just over a year commuting. And by the end of each year, we've spent 250 hours waiting for the light to change, waiting for the driver in front of us to look up from their TikTok, waiting for the construction on I-45, 59, and or 290 to be completed, waiting on my invitation from the Peace Corps. All that waiting isn't great. You saw rather clearly it wasn't great for me. Thank you for being patient with me during this arduous and polluted commute that it took me to get here. It hurt a bit, but now I breathe a whole new air. That's why I haven't felt the pollution here. Although the air quality is affected by the smoke rising from burnt fields, it is also refreshed by the growth that comes afterwards. Plants convert the carbon of their predecessors into oxygen that we can breathe. The fire clears dead brush that would otherwise inhibit the growth of the next season. Their heat may change the acidity of the soil, making it more hospitable for germination. It may also increase the viability of microbial life, leading to more essential nutrients like nitrogen in the soil. By the way, gusha, the aforementioned word for burn, it also means new when you say it with a different tone.
It's not the panic. Fire is your friend.